What's up? It's Lucas at Man, and today I'm going to show you my shop-built ladder cart, utility cart, and I'm going to show you all the little features I built into it. So check it out. Alright, so as I've mentioned in other videos, and if you follow along, I work in a basement shop here. So it's not the biggest space in the world, and it's really important to have efficiency and have everything where it needs to be and easily accessible. I spent a long time trying to figure out the best way to store shop supplies, consumables, screws, fasteners, glue in the shop here. And I was always running around, keeping them in different places. I had screws on a shelf here, I had screws in a pack out over here, I had tape, I had glue. None of it was all in one centralized location, and it was becoming a little inconvenient. I've always been a fan of Adam Savage. When his book came out a few years ago, I read it cover to cover, and one of the things that he talks about is his concept of first order retrievability, and what that means in his workspace and how he built that into his first ladder cart and the iterations that have come beyond that. So I like the idea of a ladder cart just because it gives a lot of space, it gives a lot of usable area, and it gives a lot of opportunities for different setups and configurations. So I started with an idea in my head for a ladder cart, and I started drawing it down on paper and just sketching some things. And when I start a new build or a project, I always start by drawing it and making some notes and doing some dimensions and getting some rough sketches in my head. And once I had that done, I transferred that to the SketchUp software that I use and modeled it and made sure I liked the proportions and the dimensions, and it seemed like it was going to work the way I wanted it to. And then I started building. So from the get-go, I really wanted primarily a place to have all of my screws and fasteners organized, accessible, and more importantly, easy to grab and go. So if I wanted to take these 4 screws, I can grab them, I can throw them in a pack out, and I can go with them. I have a ton of these red Milwaukee bins that came out of various organizers and kits that now have Kaizen foam and tools in them, and they've just been sitting around collecting dust. And as many people know, or as more people maybe don't know, the back of all of these have a lip to hang. It's actually got 2 little keyhole slots, 2 inches on center for screws, but it's also open-ended, so it can hang on an 1/8" track. So what I did is I took 1/8" aluminum extrusion stock, so it's 1/8" by 1", and I eased that top edge, and I used that with 1/4" standoffs to make these 5 layers of hanging boxes that can be configured in any way. So that was the driving force behind this cart, was being able to organize all my screws, visually be able to see them, and be able to grab and go easily at any time. It was also a great way to utilize all these extra bins that I had kicking around. So then I started thinking, what do I do on the other side? It's got to have screws on one side, but I don't have that many screws. So on the other side, I thought, okay, what's going to be useful to me? Spray cans, tape, marking tools, adhesives, and so I started thinking, how am I going to integrate those into the back side of this cart? And so what I came up with was I have a space for tape. This is another Adam Savage thing. Tape doesn't deserve to hang because you'll inevitably always need the one in the back, and I was guilty of that for years. I had tape on pipe nipples, I had tape on dowels, and you'd always need the one that was the least convenient. So the idea of being able to just have tape on a flat shelf is genius, and it's so much easier to just grab what you need. So this center shelf here, I have a lot of my commonly used spray cans. So there's some penetrating oil, lubricants, some finishes, and this shelf, just because of the height, I didn't want it to be set vertical, so that would be offset about 15 degrees, because I didn't really like the look of it. So what I ended up doing is I ended up making this shelf just pivot. You can grab what you need, and then you can just push it back in. Bottom shelf is basically the exact same as this, but it's just sitting on the bottom tray. I keep some caulking, some spray adhesive in there. I used some of the aluminum extrusion I had and made a clip rail right along the top here. So it sits right on top. of the tape shelf, which is set back at about 15 degrees angle, so stuff doesn't just fall out. It gives it a little bit of a seat in there. And so I can clip my tape measures and knives and some PPE on here, which is very handy. The top of it is a trough that's designed to fit more of these bins. So the whole cart is built at about 26 inches wide. Now these bins are about 4 inches, so that gives me a little bit of wiggle room. I didn't want it to be too tight, too snug. So having these compartments on top enables me to have various kits. So I've got my CA glue, I've got my regular glues, I've got my cutting tools, marking tools, and they're modular. The whole idea of this whole thing was that it would be as modular as possible. So basing it off of the bins, I can move stuff around, I can reorganize, I can grab them, I can take them to what I'm working on. And this way, it is all in one place, but it's easy to grab and go, which was very important. So on the ends, I have a handle that's just a 3/4 inch EMT that I put some split collars on the ends. So I can hang things on either end here. So caulking gun, a spray bottle, and the center serves as a good grab handle to move the cart around. And it also still keeps access open to the center of the cart because I built the cart as a base unit. So the base tray can still have storage in it. So I've got a handle on this side. I can clip things, I can hang tools on this end. And then on the other end here, I put my old Boston pencil sharpener, some hooks for some hearing protection, and again, more access onto the inside. So map gas torch, and it's sitting in a little cradle down there. And this whole thing just rolls around and can move wherever I need to move. So obviously the cart is built. I didn't film any of the build process. I had plans that I'd made. I just built it. But I'll go over some of the math on it and some of the specs, so it might help you if you want to build your own. I decided that I liked this triangle, and I liked the height, I liked the width, and it came back at, when I did the math on height versus the base width that I wanted, it came back at about a 15-degree angle. So that's what I went with. I went with 15 degrees, which means these are both 75 on the bottom, and they meet in the middle at the top. So what I did was I cut my plywood 4-inch strips wide, ripped them at 4 inches wide, and then I cut my angle at the bottom, and then I cut my angle at the top. It's just a compound angle, 15 degrees meeting each other, take a vertical line. And so I used these pieces to assemble the cart, and then the beauty of doing it this way, building it off of a base, which is just a 3-inch tall, 26 by 24 tray. The beauty of that is every inside dimension of the cart, every inside dimension is 26 inches. So no matter what I'm putting in, whether it's just going to be a bar to put the aluminum extrusion on so that I can hang bins, or whether it's going to be a cubby for tape or a holder for cans, it doesn't matter. It's all 26 inches. So it made building this, accessorizing it, very simple. I would rip my plywood to whatever width I wanted, and then I would just be able to cut it at 26-inch lengths and know that it would fit. Same thing with the extrusion. The extrusion is just 1/8 by 1 aluminum. The top edge, I eased it on a belt grinder. And so I hit it with 320 grit on the random orbital sander just to kind of give it a little bit of a finish. So I used a paint stick, a regular old paint stick, as a jig to drill all the holes in the aluminum and keep them consistent. So what I did is I measured out the overall length of the aluminum, and I did the division to figure out how I wanted to space my 4 holes. So with my paint stick, I then took the spacing that I determined would be appropriate, and I marked 2 points on that stick from one end as a fixed point. Then I drilled pilot holes. From here, I'm able to index the end of the paint stick to the end of the extrusion, with that bottom edge lining up with the bottom edge of the extrusion. This enables me to drill a hole here and at my second mark, and they're always going to be at the same point. Now I've got 2 holes out of 4 drilled in my extrusion. For the other 2, I simply take this, flip it over, and index it the same way off of the other end. That gives me 4 equally spaced holes, the same distance up from the bottom, and it's repeatable. Paint sticks are cheap. You can get them at your local hardware store, and they make excellent templates and jigs. And mounting these based off of the angle of the A-frame has worked out perfectly at that 15-75 degree combination angle there, because right here from the side I can see down, I can see all 5 rows of bins. There's plenty of room to grab them and put them back. I'm not fighting having them too close. I'm not fighting not being able to see. This was the perfect angle for it to be totally accessible, but also be pretty compact. This cart can be built out of 1 sheet of 3/4 inch plywood, and that will leave you plenty of excess for doing whatever additional modifications you might want. If enough people are interested in cut sheets or plans for this, let me know down in the comments, and I'll put something together and I'll get it posted up in the description. So this is the ladder cart shop cart that I built. That's the why and the how. Now, you let me know down in the comments. Let me know what you like. Let me know what you don't like. Let me know what you do differently. Let me know if you build your own or if you have built your own. You can always find me on Instagram at manmade and MA. And thanks so much for watching.